Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about the Yoruba and the Fawn. So I have for you two videos that will give you some more general information about these groups, and I'll have them up in the notes for you, and they're also here in the PowerPoint. So first about the Yoruba. They are one of the largest ethnic groups in Africa. There are currently 40 million Yoruba worldwide. They live on the west coast of Africa in Nigeria and can also be found in the Eastern Republic of Benin and Togo. They are famous for their wood carvings, sculpture, metal, textiles, and beadwork. And actually, among all of African art, they are the ones, Yoruba and the Benin are the most well known here in the West. And we'll discuss why that is. There were originally many kingdoms, each was independently governed. Oya was the strongest kingdom with the largest military and political system. Ile-Ife, located in the southwestern Nigeria, is considered the birthplace of the Yoruba civilization and the center of Yoruba people's identity and history. Oba is the word for ruler, or what we would call a king. And unfortunately, many slaves were from the Yoruba nation. So we divide the Yoruba art into these categories. So we have the archaic era before 800. Then we have the pavement period, 800 to 1000, early pavement from 1000 to 1200, late pavement from 1200 to 1400, post pavement 14 to 16, and then stylized humanism 1600 to present. So the first thing I'm showing you here is a stone monolith from the archaic period. It dates before 800, and you can see from the person standing next to it that it is very large. It has spiral-headed iron nails that are driven into it, hammered into it, and they make a trident pattern. So it has three on the top. It's like Little Mermaid. I think the father would go around with the trident, right? It's a trident. It is over 18 feet tall, and we don't actually know exactly what it was used for, but we can make connections between the use of nails in this piece and later work. Now we're in what is known as the pre-pavement period, and this is somewhere between 800 and the year 1000. And we can see that it's a fairly realistic figure. Its head, though, is very large, and we see this quite frequently in African art. And again, this is because it's showing wisdom. It's also showing like this is the driving force of the person, where we would maybe consider it like the soul of the person resides. So this, for lack of a better translation, we'll call it the spirit or the soul of the person. This person wears a necklace, and because he has a necklace on, it shows wealth. We also have the hands rather large, and then the legs very short, and the feet broken off in the front of them. But even if they were there completely, they would be on the smallish side. We have, during the pavement period, depictions of figures, but also depictions of animals, and like I said, a more naturalistic style. Next, what I'm showing you here is a map of Ile-Ife, which I've already explained is what they believe to be the origin of their history, the beginning of their culture. And if you look at this map, you'll see right in the center here is the palace. And then we have these kind of circles that go around the palace. So why would they set up their city like this? Well, if you think of it for a moment, you'll realize that if you're an invader, you would have to go through all of this, right, to get to the palace. So it was a way of fortifying the palace by making these circles going out from the palace. Then there were roads that went through this, like the one here, that connected this to other cities. Next one I'm showing you here are burial pottery. And we have many of these that have been found. In fact, in this courtyard, there were 14 of them, 14 of these pots that were found. And they have different animals on them. Well, this we can assume is maybe a ram's head. And it's wearing a royal crown, suggesting the animal served as a metaphor for kingly power. Other animals such as an elephant, a leopard, or what may be a hippopotamus on the pot to the right here, may also refer metaphorically to Oni, which Oni was the divine king. And the one over here also wears this very elaborate headdress with a pendant here. This dates to the pavement period, which would be circa, right? C means circa 1000 to 14,000. Next, I'm showing you a vessel or another piece of pottery. This is now the pavement period that we're in, and it dates to the 13th to the 14th century. And it has some very interesting things on it. So let's kind of dive into this and pull this apart. We have here an altar, and it has palm leaves on it. And we have a snake above it. And then we have here heads. And to me, this is something that I find the most fascinating of all African art are the heads. And yes, if you know anything about this, you think I'm saying this one, which is the heads that are made that look super realistic. No, that's not what I mean. So this is considered an outer head. And as I just said, super realistic, we will see. But these, the heads to the right and left of it, are what are known as the inner heads. And for me, one of the most fascinating things of African art. As I've said a couple of times, they believe that within the head lies the driving force, the spirit of the person. This is the manifestation of the spirit, and it is created here as a relief sculpture, and other places I'll show you examples of it as a three-dimensional piece of art. These look like, shears of some kind, right? And then over here, we have a basket. And out of the basket are feet, are legs and with feet, right? And it is quite known that the Yoruba did do human sacrifice, but they did not sacrifice their own people. They would only sacrifice, like if you went to war with them and you were captured in war, chances are you might end up being sacrificed. You're going to be a slave or you're going to be sacrificed. Okay, so let's get into these realistic heads, which are what make the Yoruba art so famous. Okay, so the Yoruba began creating magnificent sculptures out of first terracotta clay in the 12th through the 14th century. Later, they create bronze figures in the 14th to the 15th century. Later, Yoruba began to create more abstract wooden sculptures as their major form of art. So it's the brass ones from the 14th to the 15th century that are so famous here in the West. And what is really amazing about the brass sculptures is that these people independent of anywhere else in West Africa. I mentioned this before. They invented the lost wax technique. So this is the most complicated way to cast metal. And for many years, because the ancient Greeks had developed lost wax casting, people thought, well, there must have been a Greek colony in West Africa, and that's how these people learned this. And that is not true. That was simply the idea that people in West Africa couldn't have been smart enough to figure this out. Well, there actually are some big differences between the way the casting was done in ancient Greece in comparison to West Africa. We also have independently a third invention of or type of lost wax casting that was invented in Asia. So it was invented 3 different places independently. So I have this visual that you can look at. So again, first you're doing clay, then you're putting wax on it, then you're putting clay around it again, you're melting it and pouring the wax out, and then you're putting the metal into where the wax used to be. You break away the clay, you have a hollow sculpture. But let's first look at the terracotta sculptures. So this is from the pavement period, and it dates to the 12th to the 13th century. And you can see how realistic this is in comparison to a lot of the art we've looked at this semester. So this is depicting a queen, and you can tell this one thing is her elaborate crown. It has 5 tiers of beads on it, and then it has feathers here on the edge. And it would have had a seashell here, but unfortunately the seashell has broken off over time. And in fact, the head itself is broken off of a larger piece of sculpture. And you can tell that by how the neck, the edge of the neck here, is very jagged. It's beautifully proportioned. The head has a very serene kind of look to it with the eyes downcast. And it's just beautifully sculpted piece of art. But for me, this is more interesting. And these are some of my favorite of all African art. And it's because of the meaning behind them. So when we think of the spirit, I was raised Roman Catholic, no idea what you guys were raised, but I think of, the concept of God, the concept of the spirit, and stuff, especially something that can't be seen. And we don't have really a manifestation of that to look at. And I don't really know of any other art or society or anywhere that does this except for in African art. And this is the best example of it. So in your head is your spirit. And this is your driving force. It's your wisdom. It's everything combined. And this is what it looks like. So they have this very abstract idea of this thing that can't be seen that they make. And that's why it's so abstract. Where they're able to do something super realistic, obviously, but then they have this to indicate this thing that can't be seen, but is so important to them. So here are some more examples of inner heads. So there are lots and lots of these. And like I said, for me, this is the most interesting because of the meaning behind these pieces. All right, I'm going to stop here and then I'll continue on with another video.